I was happening, y'all. It's your boy Rico from RicoScores, and on top of all of the other chaos going on around the Commanders, right now it feels like we have the most going on in the offseason right now, which is a great thing because it's for a positive reason rather than a negative one, which it usually is, or usually would just overlooked, period, and not really talked about or being reported on by national analysts and things like that. But now we're in the news for all of the right things. But today I'm coming with the fact that a Washington top executive that we recently hired, and Rick Spielman, absolutely loves Caleb Williams. Like loves. I'm gonna give y'all a lot of his exact quotes on the situation. Of course, we got to talk about, does this make the Washington Commanders more likely to trade up? Because Rick Spielman also has another connection that's really interesting for us, and that's Ben Johnson over there with the Lions. His brother Chris is a top executive over there for the Lions, and that may increase our chances of getting Ben Johnson. Does Rick Spielman have enough power to also influence us potentially doing whatever it takes to get Caleb Williams, even if it takes moving up to the #1 pick, trading with the Bears for that USC quarterback? And when I say Rick Spielman loves this guy, I mean loves. Like, there's going to be a part in this video where somebody asks him, how do you feel about him compared to Trevor Lawrence, better or worse? How do you feel about him compared to this other great quarterback, The answer may surprise you, man. This guy loves him some Caleb Williams. But before we dive into all of that, make sure you stiff arm that like button, stiff arm the subscription button, and stiff arm the bell next to that subscription button. Just follow the instructions on the screen, man. You see those buttons? Do what the screen is doing, man. Be like the screen. But make sure y'all stay tuned, man, because I'm coming with so much content. It's about 2-3 videos a day. I'm also live streaming. By the time a lot of y'all watch this, I'll already be live streaming, or it'll be after the live streaming, because it's 2:41 p.m. right now, and I plan on live streaming at 4 p.m. So however that goes down. But make sure y'all pull up either way. Even if you missed the live stream, make sure you go back and watch the live stream, all of that type of stuff, because we're doing a call-in show where I'm opening up the phone lines for y'all to call in, because I feel like we have so many smart people in our fan base, but a lot of y'all just don't have the platform. Y'all just didn't wake up one day and decide to make a YouTube channel like a few of us out here. So I feel like y'all deserve a platform to voice your opinions over the phones on this channel. So make sure y'all pull up for that. And again, even if you're late to it, make sure you go back and watch it for what everybody else has said in Commanders Nation as well. But let's go ahead and get to this video right here. That's our primary concern right now. Let's get it. All right, so this goes all the way back to October 12th, well before we hired Rick Spielman as our advisor to how we're going to build this organization. Because remember, and I did a full breakdown on this already, a whole 30-minute video on us hiring Bob Myers and Rick Spielman to come in and basically help Josh Harris pick the right guys as far as GM goes. We already did that with Adam Peters, and then Adam Peters is probably going to take over and take the lead on who we get as like head coach, and then from there, that combination will decide the defensive coordinator, and everything else will fall into place. But I'm pretty sure Rick Spielman and Bob Myers will still have quite an impact on what goes down with the Commanders. And this article we're talking about right now came out October 12th, well before we hired them. Now, maybe, like I said, when we first got them, this was probably in the works for a few weeks now, but I'm not sure if it goes all the way back to October 12th. But even if it does, even if it doesn't, this guy wrote an entire article for the 33rd team. I guess he was like an analyst for them for a little while, and he wrote an entire article on the fact that Caleb Williams will be a franchise-changing quarterback, like a super deep dive into his weaknesses and strengths, and basically boosting them up to say, like, man, this guy, you draft him, you have the next elite top 5 quarterback. You have the next Pat Mahomes, you have the next Josh Allen, the next Joe Burrow, Lamar Jackson. He's that type of guy. Now, of course, I'm not here to debate with y'all today. Again, I have so much more film to watch before I give my full opinion on it. As of today, from the little bit I've seen from all of the guys, I have Caleb Williams #1 for me, probably Jaden Daniels second, and then I really like Drake May as well. I mean, he's an elite third quarterback to have right now, but I have so much more tape and film to watch, so I may change my mind well before we even get to this draft period. I have so much to watch. I've been super busy with high school recruiting for my Georgia Bulldogs and stuff like that. Now I'm transferring over to college film study for my Commanders. So just be patient with me. But either way, I'm not here to debate whether Caleb Williams is this or that. We're here to talk about how a very important and powerful member of the Washington Commanders front office feels this strongly about Caleb Williams. Again, he has an entire article breaking down Caleb Williams. I mean, the main title's in it. What makes Caleb Williams unique? Then he has another thing. Going off schedule is a strength. And then it's just a full breakdown of all of his great plays and why he literally could change a franchise. And so even beyond that, if you're just looking through his Twitter, shouts out to What Gibbs FF on Twitter for going through Rick Spielman, everything Rick Spielman on Twitter and social media and breaking this down. He said, picking through Spielman's Twitter with his new role with the Washington Commanders GM search, he views Caleb Williams high over Joe Burrow, Jalen Hurts, and Trevor Lawrence. Drake May, clear number 2 choice at quarterback. So that influence alone may make it more likely that if Caleb Williams is gone before we're able to take him, if we're not able to trade up number 1, you can probably bet that Drake May will be the number 2 choice right there. That will be our pick for our franchise quarterback. We got to see if Ben Johnson wants to do that as well. We got to see if Adam Peters is on board for that also. But it looks like Drake May is more than likely going to be the guy if we end up staying put at 2nd. And then also Jaden Daniels is in the mix for QB3 with similar traits to Lamar Jackson. So his order is a little bit different from mine. Caleb Williams number 1, Drake May 2, which I feel like is the general consensus. I feel like more people think that way than the way I feel. And then Jaden Daniels is number 3. But what I feel like is you can't miss with either one. And I'm going to say it over and over again. I'm going to reiterate myself over and over again this entire offseason. I may have my preferences for quarterback, but with how much faith and optimism I have behind this front office and coaching staff that we're already starting to build together, potentially Ben Johnson, Bobby Slork, or Mike McDonald being our head coach. It looks like more than likely Ben Johnson as the odds favorite, and how aggressive Adam Peters is going to be going after him. Already did a video on that, going all in on Ben Johnson, all of that type of stuff. But either way, my whole point is it doesn't matter who I think will be the best quarterback or who is the best fit for us. I have so much faith and optimism behind this front office that no matter who they pick, especially if it's between one of those 3 guys, I have all of the faith in the world. I'm going to give them the biggest benefit of the doubt that they did all of their homework. They know more than any of us, including me or y'all watching this video, and they have a plan in place. They scouted the player, and then they have an offense ready to bring out the positives from that player and to hide the weaknesses. And to develop a young quarterback that, I'm expecting some quick turnaround here. I'm hoping the goal is to be like the Texans, go from number 2 overall pick to playoff / winning your division, which however you do it. Now, we'll see about winning the division because it's a very tough division, but we have the number 2 overall pick as well. We're more than likely taking our quarterback, hopefully our version of CJ Stroud, and we may be in the playoffs next year. There's going to be some pretty high expectations. Now, I know the bar is set pretty low, so it's not like if we don't make the playoffs next year, we're just going to be rioting or something like that. But I wouldn't be surprised if with the way that we're building this front office and coaching staff, we're not in the playoffs next year, especially with a lot of untapped potential we have in players that are already here. And I'm expecting us to be big players in free agency because we have the most cap space in the NFL. And then with us having 6 top 100 draft picks, 102 draft picks, that's insane in itself. You can have an immediate impact just through the draft alone. So I think we'll be in the mix to really make some noise soon. But again, either way, I'm assuming that whoever we take, they not only scouted the right player, but they built the right offense around them to bring out the best in those guys, and they're ready to hit the ground running, and they're here to develop that guy as quickly as possible so we can play meaningful games immediately in 2024 rather than wait until 2025. But either way, going back to Rick Spielman, again, just to review real quick, Caleb Williams, he's super high on him. He's the number 1 clear-cut quarterback in Rick Spielman's eyes. And he likes Caleb Williams more than he liked Joe Burrow, Jalen Hurts, or Trevor Lawrence coming out of college. Then he has Drake May as his clear number 2. So it's Caleb Williams, gap, Drake May, gap, and then Jaden Daniels, probably QB3, probably 3A, and then maybe he has somebody else 3B or something like that. Just to go ahead and give you that update right there. And then also, This man, Rick Spielman, has gone on a whole tour around the NFL talking about how much he loves Caleb Williams and things like that. Like at one point, he went on CBS Sports Network and said this about him.
Showed plays that he's going to have to make in the NFL. Showed that he has a maturity. If he has a bad first half, can come back and respond and play very well in the second half. An indication that if he does have struggles or does hit adversity at the NFL level, that he's more than capable, mentally capable of coming back and playing well in the second half.
And then for proof of what I said, of the fact that he prefers Joe Burrow and Trevor Lawrence, he prefers Caleb Williams over all of those guys, here's that clip right here.
Last year's draft class, Caleb was the first quarterback taken, right?
Yes.
The one before that, Trevon Walker went first, so certainly there. What about 2021 when Trevor Lawrence went first? You taking Trevor or Caleb?
Caleb.
2020, Joe Burrow or Caleb?
Caleb.
2019's Kyler, you're taking Caleb there. 2018's Baker, you're taking Caleb there. So you probably have to go back to, I'll go to 2012, Andrew Luck or Caleb.
That's a toss-up for me.
Peyton or Caleb?
Caleb.
Over Peyton?
1983. You were in your 20th year in the league by then. Elway or Caleb?
Oh, they're similar type players, too.
Caleb.
And again, he thinks Drake May is the clear-cut number 2, but he describes Drake May as a poor man's Trevor Lawrence. He said, quote, he had no help until wide receiver Tez Walker started playing. Spielman said, noting the NCAA approved Walker's eligibility earlier this month. So this is a while ago. He's got a poor offensive line. He doesn't have the same weapons he had with Josh Downs, Indianapolis Colts, and Antoine Green, Detroit Lions last year. When he has time, he's great. He's getting his butt beat almost every other snap as they're struggling up front, and Miami got after him. His toughness to get up after some of the hits he takes, boy. He has a strong arm, he is athletic, and can get outside of the pocket and do things. He is an accurate thrower on the move, and he has more than enough deep strength and accuracy. He'll force it just like most of these guys will do, trying to do too much at times, but are you ready for this one? He is a poor man's Trevor Lawrence. That's what I saw in him, unquote. That's all coming from top Washington Commanders executive Rick Spielman right there. So again, he's not as high on Drake May as he is a Caleb Williams, but then again, he's putting Caleb Williams over Joe Burrow, Trevor Lawrence, Jalen Hurts, and a lot of these other elite quarterbacks. I mean, like MVP candidate type of guys. So even though he doesn't have Drake May as high as Caleb Williams, that doesn't necessarily mean that he's not high on Drake May as well. He clearly loves Drake May and feels that basically UNC failed the guy, and that if he goes to the right NFL program team, the right offense, they build the offensive line for him, give him some weapons, a good offensive coordinator, all of that type of stuff, they feel like he feels like he can be an elite quarterback as well. He loves Drake May. The only thing is, he just loves Caleb Williams even more. And you never know, though, because with his love for Caleb Williams, he may do everything in his power to try to influence Adam Peters and company, Josh Harris and those guys, Bob Myers, Ben Johnson, everybody involved, potentially whoever we hire as head coach. He may try to do his best to influence those guys to do whatever it takes to get that number 1 overall pick from the Bears. And that is possible. I'm not saying it's likely at all. Don't ever quote me and say that I think it's likely to happen. But it's not impossible. I want to also emphasize that, because Adam Rank brings up a great point. If the Bears are intent on drafting Caleb Williams, then you have to reset the whole thing with head coach and offensive coordinator. You can't do the right thing where you draft a quarterback with a lame duck head coach. You just can't. Basically setting them up for failure. And right now they fired their entire offensive staff, but for some reason of keeping the head coach, with a head coach on a hot seat like this, I just don't know. I don't really say that could work. And Chase Daniel also brings up a great point as far as Justin Fields goes. I'm more convinced than ever that Justin Fields is the quarterback of the future for the Chicago Bears. I went back and watched every game he played this year and did the deepest of dives on his play on the field. He did a full all 22 breakdown on Justin Fields' season this year. And I'm not going to lie, man, the way he looked against the Falcons a couple of weeks ago was insane. Then you also have Jeremy Fowler out here saying league sources forecast the Bears can get 2nd or 3rd round picks in a Justin Field trade. Bears can get more than Bryce Young package, even from team picking in top 5 for number 1 overall. With GM Ryan Poles must weigh, but he's not there yet. But that's really interesting, because trading away Justin Fields, yeah, you get some assets back, but it's nowhere near the amount of assets you could get for just simply moving back, keeping Fields, giving them another go, and then get all kinds of 1st round picks and maybe even some players just to move back a couple of spots and still get the guy you want the most, potentially in a Marvin Harrison Jr. Again, I don't think it's likely. I do not think it's likely, but it's also not impossible. But again, this is ultimately up to guys like Adam Peters, who is our GM running the entire football side of things. I think Eugene Shin on the analytical side probably even has a little bit more influence than Rick Spielman. And I already did a full breakdown on how Eugene Shin prefers to build his teams and things like that. I'm not exactly sure if he would prefer to trade up to get Caleb Williams or if he'd be more willing to just stay where he is. I do remember him saying one important thing, though, that he prefers 2 later picks than 1 first one. I just don't think that necessarily has anything to do with what's going on right now, because I think we're more likely to trade up to number 1 than we are to trade back from number 2. I highly doubt we trade back in this scenario. I'm pretty sure at least one of those top 2 quarterbacks they would be ecstatic to get. So, but hey, you never know, man. Rick Spielman still has some influence here. We just got to see how much of an influence he has. And if we look back after April, 27th, the first day of the draft? No, April 25th, my fault. April 25th, 2024, and we've drafted Caleb Williams. I'm very curious about how much influence Rick Spielman had on that. I'm not saying we will end up with Caleb Williams, but I'm just saying if we did, I would be very curious to see how much influence Rick Spielman had on that whole decision, whether we traded up to number 1 or we stood pat at number 2, and then Rick Spielman is the one screaming at the phone, go draft our guy, before the Bears change their mind, no take backsies type of thing. But also, on top of that, he may not be alone in this room as far as Caleb Williams goes. There's probably several people in that front office that feel like Caleb Williams is a franchise-changing quarterback. And even though they would also love Drake May, they would love Jaden Daniels as well, they'd be happy with all 3. I'm pretty sure there's more than one person in that front office, probably even an Adam Peters, who's, again, running the show on the football side. Maybe he loves Caleb Williams as well. We haven't seen him come out and flat out say it like Rick Spielman did, but I'm not even sure if anybody would at this point. Like, Rick Spielman said these things again before we hired him. I feel like at this point, with Adam Peters already hired, or even Rick Spielman in this case, if we had already hired him and he didn't already put out that article on the 33rd team and go on this press run about how Caleb Williams is the best quarterback in this draft, he's better than Trevor Lawrence, Joe Burrow, and Jalen Hurts and all that type of stuff, I feel like he wouldn't have even said it out loud now. I feel like now that the guys are in the building, they're going to try to keep their cards close to their chest. Obviously, a lot of people like Caleb Williams, but it is a little irresponsible to put that information out there. So I'm assuming that Rick Spielman wrote those articles and went on this press run on CBS Sports and things like that, hyping up Caleb Williams before he knew that we were going to try to bring him in to hire him, and that we would have the number 2 overall pick and actually be in a realistic range to potentially land him by trading up, or maybe the Bears just take Drake May because of his measurables. He's the prototypical size quarterback and all that type of stuff, big arm, the Josh Allen looking guy. And you know, I would be a little surprised, but I wouldn't just be flat out shocked if the Bears just actually went Drake May number 1 and Caleb Williams lands in our lap number 2. Again, another thing I'm not saying is likely at all. I actually highly doubt it, but again, another thing that is not impossible. But again, this is really interesting that Rick Spielman has that information out there, because I'm pretty sure if we would have hired him before he put that information out there, that information would not be out there. I'm pretty sure Josh Harris and company do not want other teams knowing what we plan to do. I think it's fairly obvious that Caleb Williams is an elite quarterback and that most people want him. If not everybody in this draft probably wants him. Every team in the NFL would love to get a Caleb Williams, unless you already have your elite quarterback that you consider a franchise quarterback. So maybe it's not even really snitching on yourself that much, because it's the world's most well-known secret out there that we probably want Caleb Williams. But at the same time, it's just really interesting with the timing of this information coming out, and then we hired Rick Spielman afterwards. So Adam Peters in this case, for my example, going back to what I was originally trying to say, is that maybe Adam Peters wants Caleb Williams a lot, but we will never know that until after Caleb Williams selected in the draft. And maybe even after that, if we end up with Drake May, we're not just going to put out there through the news cycle, yeah, we preferred Caleb Williams, but we ended up taking Drake May just because he was there and all of this stuff, because that would be just completely disrespectful to Drake May and what he has going on. No, we're going to shape it up as if we prefer Drake May from the very beginning and all that type of stuff. Or even if we end up taking Jaden Daniels, we're going to act like we prefer Jaden Daniels over Caleb Williams anyway. So we just really, at this point, we never will know. That's why this Rick Spielman thing is so interesting and chaotic, because typically a front office executive doesn't just come out and flat out say who they prefer as a quarterback for the team that they're working for. This is very unique, but again, it took circumstance for this to happen. He put that information out before we hired him, well before we hired him, before Josh Harris probably even picked up the phone to talk to the guy. So really interesting information right there. It's very rare when you know one of your front office guys that have heavy influence on who our team decides to take in the draft, bring in as coaches and things like that. Very rare when you know what their intentions are heading into the draft. Super excited about that. Also, Nikki Javala brought up a good point, and I just wanted to go ahead and point this out as well. Kind of different and separate from everything we talked about in this video, but she tweeted, "I'm told Bob Myers will continue as an NBA analyst for ESPN while working in an advisory mode for the Commanders during their head of football operations and head coaching search." So just let you know, Bob Myers is still doing what he was already doing at ESPN, and then he's just kind of helping us on the side whenever necessary. He was there in Miami when we were doing all of those interviews. He's probably more so focused on his NBA analyst job for ESPN right now until we start to get to this head coaching search. Or maybe whenever they need him, he could just go back to Miami, whatever. These guys are rich, man. He could take a private plane back and forth to wherever he's doing this thing for ESPN as an NBA analyst. Or he could probably be doing it in Miami, and everybody's just in Miami. He's chilling. Nothing to worry about, but just some information that I saw. And again, my whole goal of making this YouTube channel is to make us a smarter fan base. So even some small news like that doesn't really matter, I still prefer for y'all to know if I know. I'm not about to gatekeep any information from y'all, man. But yeah, man, that's the end of this video. Please stiff arm that like button, stiff arm the subscription button, and stiff arm the bell next to that subscription button so you get notification each and every time I release an informative and opinionated video just like this one. Make sure you stiff arm that like button. Stay tuned for all of the content that I'm coming out with. Make sure you pull up for that live stream going down at 4 p.m. Again, by the time this video comes out, I'll probably already be live streaming. It's 3:02 p.m. I still got to edit and get this video out, thumbnail, all of that type of stuff. But make sure y'all stay tuned, man, because I'm doing live streams and call-in shows all throughout the off season to get y'all opinions on head coaches, to get y'all opinions on free agency stuff, draft stuff, everything. When we finally hire an offensive coordinator, or even before we hire that guy, even say, for example, we hire Ben Johnson as our head coach, we'll probably do a call-in live show about the best defensive coordinators out there to work under a Ben Johnson, all of that type of stuff. So stay tuned. I'm gonna keep y'all involved. I'm coming out with like 2-3 videos a day. Stay tuned. I'm gonna catch y'all later. Appreciate y'all. I'm out.